Tonight, chaos at the Greater Accra Head Office of the Electoral Commission as members of the opposition National Democratic Congress in the Weija Gbawe Constituency demand their candidate for the constituency. He is declared winner of the 2024 parliamentary election.
Apply to the elections, let the EC lady come and tell us that this grievous criminal administrative breach should go this direction. It is not captured in any part of the CI. Where in the CI is stated that when an act of criminality, faking and falsifying election results, and confessing to that, where in the CI does it make provision for that?
Details as the parliamentary candidate for the NDC says at the right time the EC will hear from his quarters. But we have more on this story because the Electoral Commission comes under fresh pressure from the ruling New Patriotic Party, with the party demanding resumption of results collation in some disputed constituencies where it believes its parliamentary candidates were victorious.
It is therefore our expectation that the EC would immediately resume the collation exercise. We implore the National Election Security Task Force to provide adequate security to facilitate peaceful collation under a serene environment. We are also calling on the NDC leadership to rein in on their supporters.
We have more on this particular development here on Top Story, always brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies and holy insecticide spray and coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. Tonight, there was chaos at the headquarters of the Electoral Commission, the head office of the Greater Accra Regional Electoral Commission, as a short while ago, as members of the opposition National Democratic Congress in the Weija Gbawe Constituency besieged the office to demand their candidate for the constituency is declared winner of the 2024 parliamentary election. The supporters who threw stones to the headquarters building said they will not leave the area until the EC answers their demand. It had to take the intervention of the police to calm tensions. My colleague James Aveji is at the commission now. He'll be joining us with latest from the office. But before then, my colleague Faustina Safo, who covered that particular constituency during the election, joins me to lay the foundation for this particular discussion. Faustina, you were there.
Yes.
How was the collation process in that particular constituency, which the NDC is now contesting?
Well, at the Weija Gbawe Collation Center, the atmosphere to a large extent was chaotic, Kojo. Now, collation took nearly 48 hours after the close of polls on Saturday, which is 5 p.m. Now, this infuriated the supporters of Felix Odate Lamte. He's the NDC parliamentary candidate for Weija Gbawe. Now, the NPP parliamentary candidate for the area, Jerry Ahmed Shaib, was actually calm throughout the process. At some point, the NDC supporters, they took over the collation center, Kojo, because they were upset as to why the EC has delayed close to 48 hours and they still didn't know their fate. And so they took over the collation center. They overpowered the police. It took the military, Kojo, to calm tempers at that collation center. When the EC was almost done with some of the constituencies, which is collating the results, the NDC parliamentary candidate staged a walkout. He and his supporters, they were upset. They said the process had delayed. And they were contesting the results even before the EC had declared. So the EC then, after collating the results, said that the NPP parliamentary candidate, Jerry Ahmed Shaib, was winner for that constituency. They signed the pink sheet along with other contestants in that constituency. But the NDC refused to sign. They are contesting the results in that constituency as we speak, Kojo.
All right. So it means that there were delays on the part of the EC as well.
Yes, and they say, really, they say it's as a result of the collation process. Because of the concerns being raised by individuals who were monitoring the Electoral Commission, they wanted to be sure that the results were certified, the results were going through the right procedure. So when it came to collating the result, they were quite particular about what they were typing in for the EC.
Okay.
And that whole process was quite slow because they had only 2 officials manning the decks as at that time. It took 48 hours, Kojo, before they declared a winner.
All right. So it means that the NDC agent did not sign that declaration form?
No, they didn't.
Interesting.
For the parliamentary, by
yes.
the way, but for the presidency, they did.
Okay, thank you for sending us out for that. My colleague James Aveji has been at the Commission's headquarters, regional office all day, monitoring how this development has been transpiring, and he joins me on the phone lines with more. James, you are the head office, or the regional head office today. What can you report?
Well, Brace, it has been one of those chaotic situations we've seen in the last few days after the election, where members of the NDC mass up from morning to demand that their candidate is declared winner of the election. Now, if you come to the EC office, even as we speak, there are debris of car tires which have been bent by the political party supporters. A number of tires have been bent there, with stones also on the grounds at the entrance of the EC office. Those are stones members of the party or supporters have been pelting at security officers who try to prevent them from getting access to the EC office. They have been calling, it took the intervention of the security agencies, especially the police, water cannon to disperse the crowd and also actually wash away some of the debris that have been left behind. I've been speaking to a member of the election committee of the NDC in the Greater Accra region, Raymond Gomez, who's been explaining to me why he himself, as well as the candidate and the party supporters, visited the EC regional head office today.
On Wednesday in the night at around 8 p.m. And this is what we chanced upon. This is not hearsay. The EC lady herself confessed that they were making entries. They were putting in totals. As to what they were putting in and why they were putting it in 4 clear days after, nobody knows. But that is an act of criminality. And by that act of criminality, we, by a layman's knowledge, know that the election result declared, so-called declaration, is null and void. If you apply for a school with a fake certificate and the school realizes that your certificate is fake and they revoke that certificate, what have they done to your admission? Your admission is revoked because the basis of your admission is wrong. And that is what has happened in the election in the Weija Gbawe Constituency, the parliamentary election. Now, we met with the regional director of the Electoral Commission and put this across to her. We did that verbally and put that on paper to her. For the EC to come out and tell us the steps that they are taking to address this, she has refused to. We agreed with her in the meeting on Friday that we'll be here on Monday for response. From 10 a.m. till now, she has refused to see us.
So that is the director of elections for that particular region. But Kwesi, the parliamentary candidate himself was there as well. What has he been saying?
Well, as far as he is concerned, I mean, the candidate himself, Felix Odate-Lamte, is concerned, he remains winner of that constituency election that happened a few days ago. He believes that the refusal of the EC to meet the director of the Electoral Commission's regional director for the Greater Accra region, to meet them is disrespectful to them as a party and he as a candidate, and promising that they would stand up and fight until the right thing, according to him, is done to them.
On Wednesday in the night at around 8 p.m., I walked out at a point because there are issues with some of the pink sheets. We have pink sheets that has no designation. You don't have any polling station assigned to it. You don't know the presiding officer that signed that pink sheet. No name of any presiding officer. And at the collation, we are supposed to agree on all these things before collation starts. And Madam Abigail, knowing very well what he has connived with the MPP and they are about to do, walked out of the collation room and told us the NDCs that if we agreed on something, we should come back. So
meaning you raised these issues with her and she couldn't provide any justification. What was her exact answer to you when you raised those?
The exact answer to me that if the NDC agrees on something, we should come back. So yes, truly she walked out, and we also what? Stepped out.
Okay, so what is that thing that you agreed on?
We agreed on what? We didn't agree on anything, and that is why we are telling you that the basis for what? Even the declaration is flawed. Yeah.
For now, what's the next line of action? It seems to me that you haven't had any headway with your discussion with the EC today. What are you doing?
Definitely we'll have a headway. So the discussions have started, and you hear from us. Thank you.
Well, Felix Odate Lamte is the NDC parliamentary candidate for Weija Gbawe. But still on the issue about, parties disagreeing with the Electoral Commission over the collation of results for parliamentary elections, the governing New Patriotic Party is ramping up pressure on the Electoral Commission to resume collation of results in some constituencies and the recollation of results in other constituencies, despite official declarations favoring the opposition National Democratic Congress. In most of those areas, the NPP claims it has concrete evidence, including its own collated figures and supporting pink sheet showing their candidates as the rightful winners in these constituencies. Listen to a leading member of the NPP, Peter McMenu, during an address earlier.
The point must also be made that the position of the law is that once a proper and regular declaration has been done by the EC, the only remedy available to an aggrieved party, apart from resorting to alternative disputes resolution, ADR, pursuant to Courts Act and ADR Act, is to go to the High Court for redress under Article 99(1) of the 1992 Constitution. However, with the seats that the NPP is contesting, no declaration, properly so-called, was done. So the declaration has not been done. Why do you, who can ask us to go to court? No, it's for the EC to recollate as it did in the year 2004 under Dr. Afrejan at Puru constituency in the now Bono East region.
In fact, EC says that there hasn't been any.
But the EC itself has issued a statement, a press conference, that there's no declaration. How does the NDC expect the EC to gazette election results that have not been fully collated and declared? It is pretty obvious that the NDC leadership and their supporters who stormed the collation centers to compel the EC under the threat of death to declare their candidates as winners have labored in vain, because we are a country of rule of law, not rule of men. EC's response: it is not surprising that at a press conference held on Friday, 13 December, the Electoral Commission, through its deputy chair, Mr. Samuel Tete, stated emphatically that there was no declaration of the Ablekuma North, Domikwa Benya, Tema Central, Okaikwe North, Ahafuano North, Ahafuano Southwest, Obuasi East, Techiman South, and Nswam Adwajiri constituency parliamentary results, because the collation was incomplete. Indeed, the Commission has maintained that all purported declaration of parliamentary results made under duress, as was seen in those constituencies, are not in conformity with laid down processes enshrined in CI 127.
Well, the Electoral Commission has been speaking as well on this particular matter, and Deputy Electoral Commission Chairperson Bosman Asari says most of the declarations done in the disputed constituencies are not recognized by the Commission, as some of these constituencies had their results declared without the full complement of entire polling stations in the area.
I've just indicated that CI 127 Regulation 43, which is about...
No, I know Regulation 43.
Everything is there.
Regulation 43 is just about the returning officer and his duties. My question is, if you ask a director to do it, you ask a director in Damango to do the declaration on what authority, which law? That's what they want to know.
They want to know on which law we...
Because it is the returning officer who has to do it. So why do you ask a director there to do it?
At the time, the returning officer was incapacitated. I think you heard our office in Damango was bent down.
Mm-hmm.
The returning officer was incapacitated. We were told he was hospitalized in one of the hospitals in Tamale, and the process has to continue. And it's the same thing we are doing in Tesano. What came to us was that the constituency collation centers were not conducive for the process to continue. So in consultation with the Ghana Police Service and for security purposes, it was agreed that let's come to Tesano where the police can assure us of security.
The accusation you face now, the allegation you face now is that by the processes so far, what the NDC believes has already been declared, you are now overturning them in favor of the NPP, when you could simply say that you could simply repeat what you said to the NDC in 2020, that if any NPP person is aggrieved by the declaration, whether it was done under duress, whether it was done by someone who is not an officer, whatever it is, they must go to court, because court is the only place to resolve that issue. You are not doing that, and therefore you seem to be supporting, aiding the NPP to gain more seats.
I think I made an earlier point that the Electoral Commission as an institution doesn't care who wins presidential, who wins parliamentary. That's not part of our mandate. Our mandate is to ensure that the processes leading to the election of the president, the processes leading to the election of our parliamentarians, they follow what has been specified in law.
I think it's a good time to bring in the Director Legal Directorate of the NDC, Godwin Eduji Tamaklo Esquire, into the discussion. Grateful to you, sir, for agreeing to join us here. Now, first off, briefly on the Weija Gbawe, what's the direction of the party with regards to that particular seat?
Okay, so once again, good evening to your listeners. As you rightly pointed out, in the specific case of Weija Gbawe, the events are unfolding, the revelations that we have seen video recordings of Electoral Commission officers engaging in what appears to be obvious manipulation of electoral results to achieve one particular outcome. We have called for those videos. A team has been put together to study it, and the next appropriate step will be announced. We do not want to, as it were, indicate in the public domain exactly what and how we intend to resolve that problem. But okay. I can tell you that we use every legitimate means available to have that matter conclusively dealt with.
Mm. I mean, in the books of the NDC, how many constituencies does the party think it hasn't concluded the processes, and therefore it will push to ensure that it is declared for its candidate because you think you're winning?
Okay, so as you're aware, already 5 or more of those seats have been declared in favor of NDC candidates. One, Domeko Abenya. The returning officer for Domeko Abenya actually filed the declaration form, and the form was duly witnessed by the candidates or the agents. As you're aware, Obuasi is a similar thing happened, and in that case, the person who signed the declaration form included the MPP parliamentary candidates and MP for the area. The same applies to Okankwe Central, Ablekuma North, Fantiakwa North. All these seats were declared in favor of the NDC. You're also aware that the Electoral Commission, in a very brazen manner, decided, as it were, to say that they have invalidated the outcome of those elections. Madam Jane Mensah is a lawyer. She appreciates what the law is. CI 127, made on the 1st of July 2020, was made by her. And she appreciates the dictates of that CI 127, that as far as parliamentary election is concerned, there is a returning officer established under Regulation 2 and 3, with the functions spelled out in Regulation 3, and not Jane Mensah or Bosman Asari or any of those people sitting in those ivory towers. None of them whatsoever have the capacity to do that. In fact, per the laws of this country, once the returning officer returns a constituency election outcome, that returning officer becomes functus officio. That is the law.
Okay. So
let me use your medium to announce that this afternoon, the NDC, leading these 5 candidates whose election have so far been declared, have calls to be issued at the registry of the High Court, a judicial review application in the nature of certiorari, prohibition, mandamus, and injunction against the Electoral Commission. That process has duly been served on the Electoral Commission. So in the coming days, the Electoral Commission would have to explain to the court by which powers, by which authority they can invalidate an election or constituency election that has been validly declared. The level of impunity, the level of lawlessness at the Electoral Commission is mind-boggling. And I think that the time has come for our courts, lawless Electoral Commission to order.
Was that a response or a strategy to do away with the pressure the governing NPP is putting on the Electoral Commission to resume collation of these results in the constituencies, among which you mentioned already that your candidates have won?
I am not aware of any pressure coming from the NPP. If that is illegal, it's unlawful, it is what it is. I'm not aware. I think that the NPP should appreciate the enormity of defeat they suffered in the December 7th election. Look, if you look at the declaration or what we usually call the pink sheet or the constituency declaration 4, you would notice that each one of them at least had the benefit of being signed by the returning officer. The level of double standards of this Electoral Commission is amazing. This is an Electoral Commission that can call an officer to go and declare Samuel Abu-Jinapo as the MP-elect of Damango. The same Electoral Commission has a problem with an officer of the commission declaring an NDC person the candidate or the MP-elect. I mean, such level of inconsistency. It's amazing.
I think they explained there that for that of Damango, the officer was incapacitated and therefore they had to allow someone to come in. But let me bring in Evans Nimako here because he's Director of Research and Elections for the NPP. Evans, you heard there that the NDC has already gone to court to try to sort of protect some of the gains that they've made. But with the seat that you're talking about, the law is clear, isn't it, that where the returning officer makes the declaration, you can only go to court and not pressure the EC to resume recollation of already collated results.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Good evening to your listeners. I think for us as New Patriotic Party, the issues are very simple. And for each of these constituencies, there were designated returning officers. I think it will not be out of place that your production will want to take a step and reach out to these individual returning officers. Also, there were police officers or members of the National Election Security Task Force who were assigned to all these collation centers. And so we can really interrogate these issues better. Beyond the two, the police or members of the National Security Task Force, returning officers and their deputies, were also your colleagues who covered all these processes of collation.
And unless you want to run away from the black and white dictates in the CI 127 regulation 43, when it comes to collation, there are processes. It's not just an event that must happen and is concluded. Yes, it is for the returning officer to assemble all the results from all the polling stations and put them together. And when that is done, Form 1C will have to be developed, which is the collation sheet for the constituency. That brings together all polling station results. And then Form 1B is generated from the Form 1C. The returning officer will then have to generate the Form 1B, which is the rate. Let's find out in all these constituencies whether these were done. Yes, Eduji can be talking to you and making all the nuances you want to. Yes. But, you know, it didn't take the New Patriotic Party too much of a difficulty to say, based on what we've collated in terms of presidential, Mr. Mahama has gotten more votes than Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. If the NDC know that they have the numbers in these constituencies, let them bring their pin sheets. You see, they can say go to court, but there's time for everything. When results have not been gazetted and you say go to court, they once said you can go to court and they suffered for it. So for us, we know that the demands you put on the table are legitimate. In fact, the Electoral Commission by themselves appreciate that their officers were not allowed the opportunity to go through the process of collation. And so if they still think that they disagree, they are at liberty. But for us as New Patriotic Party, we think that we are being law obedient and we will go through the process and place our demands where it is required. There is time for everything. When we have to do other actions, the party would not depart from that. So yes, we think that what happened in all these places, I mean, the election took place in all the 276 constituencies across the 40,648 polling stations. Why is it that in these particular polling stations, the NDC sent people to disrupt the process of collation? Why? And I'm telling you, they knew that the numbers are not in their favor. That is why they will go every length to disrupt the process of collation. In 2004, in a constituency in Bono region, the Improved constituency, Dr. Kwejo Afarajan overturned the results from Proof because the NDC agents pulled together all their pin sheets and made the point that the results as declared by the returning officer was not accurate. The results were collated again in Sunyani, the regional capital then. And Dr. Kwejo Afarajan overturned the results based on the results on the pin sheet.
So your pink sheets are telling you are winning all of these constituencies you talk about.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. I'm grateful to you for joining us here. Thanks to you, Evans Demako and Godwin Eduji Tamaklo. This has been Top Story, brought to you always by Telecel and Holy Insecticide Spray and Coil. Up next is Newsnight.